have joined online via our Zoom platform. In terms of apologies for absence, we have from member Michael Henry. Are there any other apologies?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Mr. Donovan Williams. He said he will join a bit late, but once he gets out of his current meeting, and Ms. Morrison will join.
Okay, thank you. Could I just invite you to say a word of prayer for me, Member Sibyls?
Okay. Let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you today as your people to honor you and to give you praise, the praise that you truly deserve. And in your presence, Lord, we ask that you continue to watch over Jamaica, land we love, its people, its children, specifically. We ask for this meeting that our deliberation will be done in accordance to your work. We ask all these things to your blessed Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Member Sibyls. Today's meeting is a continuation of the meeting that began last week, Tuesday. We only focused last week, Tuesday, on the social housing component with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, as the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development had indicated prior that they were not available last week, and they're now here. So we're going to substantively deal with the matters that the Auditor General raised in terms of the overall assistance programs. But before we go further, I'll invite we have a large number of public servants here. I'll invite the Auditor General to introduce her team, then the Ministry of Finance, then the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and then the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will ask my team members just to raise their hands to identify themselves when their name is called. Christopher Hare, Deputy Auditor General Acting. Ricardo Hall, Principal Auditor. Camilla Whitby, Director. Junior Thomas, Director. Alicia Powell Bowen, Senior Auditor. Rochelle Bailey Thomas, Director. Kevin Wright, Senior Auditor. Jennifer Hutchinson, Senior Auditor, Clemar Johnson, Senior Auditor, and Shauna K. Dyer, Communication Officer.
Thank you. Ms. Blake.
Morning. Hope Blake, Deputy Financial Secretary, and with me on my left is Barrington Thomas, Head of the Accounting and Financial Policy Unit.
Mrs. Jennings, I know there are ministry personnel, and I also see personnel from the municipal corporations as well.
Good morning, Chair, morning members. I'm Diane Jennings, Permanent Secretary Acting in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And the other members of the team are, beside me, Mr. Jason Anderson, the Principal Financial Officer. Next to him is the Chief Technical Director, Mrs. Audrey Dare Williams, in charge of Social Security. And beside her is our Legal Officer, Senior Assistant Attorney General, Mr. John Paul Watson. And to my far right, in the second row, is Ms. Suzette Morris, Director of Social Security. And beside her, Ms. Donette Smith Cameron, Director of Management Information System. Next to her is Mrs. Sophia Pearson Gale, Senior Project Manager Accounts. And beside her is Mrs. Elsa Marks Willis, Project Manager, Spiro Project. And in the third row, we have Director Disaster Rehabilitation and Welfare Management, Ms. Jacqueline Shepard. And beside her, Ms. Kamisha Anderson Thomas, Director of Public Assistance. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Before I come to you, Pierce, I see representatives from the municipal corporations. Could I just invite them to identify themselves and introduce themselves? And Mrs. Jennings, could you release your microphone for me?
Morning, Chairman. Morning, everyone. Robert Hill, Chief Executive Officer, Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation.
Good morning, Chairman, other colleagues. Rovel Morris, CEO, Portmore City Municipality.
Good morning, Chairman. Marvelyn Pittle, Chief Executive Officer, St. Catherine Municipal Corporation. And my team members are Marcia Green, Accountant, Accounting Operations, and Dolores Gooden, Director of Finance.
Andre Griffiths, CEO, Westmoreland Municipal Corporation.
Morning, everyone. Jumani Robinson, Acting CEO, Portland Municipal Corporation.
All right, Mrs. Henry Martin, could you introduce the team from the Ministry of Local Government, please? Let's check if the mic, no, it's not working? No, we're not hearing you at all. We need some technical assistance. Just hit the mic and let me see if it's working. The only thing is we have to make sure Hansard can capture you correctly. So just knock it and let me see if it's, no, it's not. We're going to try and get the technical team because you are going to be speaking and we have to, they were checked earlier and they were working. It's normally connected to one of those mics. Something need to be turned on? Or it was plugged out? All right, test it again, Mrs. Henry. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
That's on?
Yeah, you may have to come a little closer. Or can you just adjust it so it can be, bring it a little closer to, yeah, okay.
Good morning, Chairman. That's better. So I am Marcia Henry Martin, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. And to my right is Ms. Trika Lewis, Secretary, Board of Supervision. And behind me are Mr. Owen Brown, Director, Parochial Revenue Fund Branch, Mr. Junior Rose, Senior Director, Strategic Planning Policy and Reform Unit, and Mr. Dwight Wilson, Senior Director, Technical Services.
All right, thank you. I'll invite the Auditor General to just provide a summary of her findings, as you normally do, and then we can get into the substantive discussion on the matters. As I said last week, we only focused on the issues related to the social housing component because your ministry wasn't here and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation was present and had indicated they wouldn't be able to be here today. So, Madam Auditor General.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If you'd permit, I'll not go into the details I did last week. Yes.
Yeah.
But just to reiterate that our audit surrounded the social safety net reform program, the targets set out in that program, as well as the national development plan, especially from the standpoint of the operating legislation, which is the first issue that we're going to deal with, as well as the social protection strategy. And of course, these are further underpinned by the medium-term plans, the medium-term framework. And just to reiterate that our findings is really juxtaposed against the requirements of both the social safety net reform program, the national development plan, and the social protection strategy. And just to reinforce that it was the social safety net program that recommended the consolidation of 3 major income transfer programs, which is the food stamps, the old age, the incapacity allowance, and the outdoor poor relief. I think I can stop there for now.
Okay. I'm going to start with Mrs. Jennings as the substantive ministry that deals with social assistance in terms of your response to the findings. We know you have provided a written response, but you can give us a summary, and then I'll come to the Ministry of Local Government after.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just to say that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is concerned about matters relating to and affecting individuals in their capacity as workers, employers, labor force participants, and beneficiaries, social security and social assistance programs. And we have two divisions, the Labor Division and the Social Security Division. Our emphasis today is on the Social Security Division, and that division seeks to provide a safety net through the efficient administration of contributory national insurance scheme and non-contributory public assistance programs. And so the work of the Social Security Division is carried through the national insurance assistance programs, as well as programs for persons with disabilities, senior citizens, and persons who are vulnerable. And so we seek to provide social protection services and facilitate social inclusion of the vulnerable population. And we seek to provide effective social security services. So in terms of the Auditor General's report, which we have before us concerning managing government social benefit programs, she would have highlighted some key areas as it relates to the social safety net and the social safety net program. I could start with that first to indicate that that program was developed in 2000, and there was this committee that was established which incorporates several agencies, ministries, departments of government. Of course, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is a key player there. We also have the representatives from the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, as well as the representatives from the MEGJC, three key ministries that have an important role to play in the delivery of programs that would support persons' social standing and, of course, their livelihood chances and generally their social protection. So it's not just social assistance, but social protection. So that committee did indicate a position in terms of the overlapping of functions and to promote and posit that we needed to have one program or one legislation to treat with social programs. In terms of that proposal, over time, the representatives had discussions, and it was a priority area in terms of legislation in the ministry back in 2000 and up to 2013, 2015, and then there was a change in terms of the priority legislation. And as indicated in the report, it fell off the legislative agenda. However, I must say that while legislation is important, that did not in any way stop the Ministry of Labour and Social Security in delivering social benefits and social transfers to persons who are in need. And so we actually had the strategy, the social protection strategy, developed as a result of consultations with various ministries, departments, and agencies in ensuring that this is a guiding force, a guiding framework in ministries delivering social protection. So in that strategy, we seek to have a collaboration and partnerships in the delivery of social programs and social benefits. The report also raised the matter of the central database, and that would have been in discussion for some time. I know that the Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and what previously constituted the MEGJC would have had discussions in trying to have a central database that would support the delivery or the management of these services. It should be noted that while there were some challenges in terms of finding the support, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security received support from the World Bank under the new program, the Social Protection for Increased Resilience and Opportunity, SPIRO project, where the World Bank would have supported us in, among other things, to design and develop the integrated social protection information system. And that is one of the activities that the ministry is concentrated on currently. And we are seeking to modernize and strengthen the delivery of social protection services in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security by creating this unified digital platform wherein the programs within the ministry can be more streamlined and it can be accessible through our web portal and also through our local offices in the parish offices island-wide. And the intention is to, later on, to have other ministries access these programs and also in terms of interfacing, have an interoperable aspect to this social protection information system. So I think I will stop there, Chair, and respond to any questions that come before us.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Henry Martin, again, if you could just, in summary, if you have a response to the findings related to the ministry. If you don't want to, if you're more comfortable responding to questions, that's fine.
No, Chairman, it's just that of the findings, you'll find that the ministry's component weighed in quite a bit. So I would try my best to do it in summary.
Okay.
So following on from what the Ministry of Labor and Social Security has said, in fact, the ministry would have engaged in numerous meetings with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security towards the delivery of our social benefits. The ministry, however, before I proceed, would like to acknowledge the work done by the Auditor General's Department in conducting this exercise, because it has certainly created an opportunity for us to look at the areas that we could strengthen the programs that we deliver. The ministry continues to operate within the legal framework of the Local Governance Act, Section 21, that outlines its responsibility for social protection, poverty eradication, amongst others, at the local level. And of course, the Poor Relief Act, which relates to the most indigent and vulnerable in our society, consistent with the policy directions of government. Some findings included in the recently concluded report indicated duplication and deficiencies in the design and management of the Municipal Social Assistance Program, MSAP, which is a new program implemented by the ministry consistent with its mandate for poor relief. The ministry would like to assure the members of this committee and the country that the work it performs in respect of social protection for the most vulnerable, including the homeless, mentally ill, that it is relevant, transparent, and accountable. There have been no reports of fraud or duplication, and the ministry is committed to enhancing its engagement with stakeholders, including our ministries, agencies, departments, NGOs, whomever may be necessary, ensuring that our programs are aligned with national priorities and international best practices to include developing a digital footprint for poor relief. The platform, or this platform that we are presently working on, will recognize the work by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. This was part of our discussions in previous years, that we could proceed to begin this digitization, and as soon as the main project described by Mrs. Jennings just now is rolled out, there will be a seamless integration. And so the teams are already in dialogue. This digital platform within the local government ministry is proposed to be completed within this financial year. I just want to also highlight, sir, that for the 2024 period, the Poor Relief Department continued its mandate in supporting the registered poor, totaling over 16,000 individuals, by providing essential relief in various forms. This includes addressing immediate basic needs such as nutrition, medical and healthcare assistance, rental support, schooling, scholarships for children who are on poor relief, among several other services. The MSAP, which is a new program by the ministry, aims to bolster the response of local authorities to help meet the needs of constituents within the local governance and poor relief acts, thereby ensuring that the rights of the citizens to a decent standard of living is obtained and observed. We acknowledge room for improvement, and the internal review of the concept note that guides MSAP has been amended and is presently subject for internal review. We have included key performance indicators as part of our monitoring and evaluation framework. The respective directors already been advised that I would like to see something more added to it. Local authorities have also vastly improved in the consistent submission of monthly reports. The report that was generated for December indicated the shortcomings in providing those reports on time. I can say as of today, all the monthly reports are in up to May 2025, except for Hanover and St. Anne, who has May outstanding, and we expect to get this by the end of day. With respect to the legislative framework, the ministry, of course, operates on the policy direction that is issued, and so the Human Services Bill would have been pursued. As you are aware, it was tabled here, fell off the table, and was again being consulted on. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security, in this respect, would have been requested to provide comments on the bill, which they have done up to last year. We are now in another round of consultation. And this, of course, has been represented on both our 2024, 2025, and 25-26 operational plans for the ministry. I've already indicated the adjustments to the concept document for the key performance indicators. We still want to look at it some more to strengthen our monitor and evaluation of the program for MSAP in particular. The audit also found some discrepancies with the funds that were accounted for by the local authorities. We had requested our internal audit unit to also do a deep dive into all the local authorities. That audit is scheduled to commence July, and we expect it to be completed by September of this year. With respect to, I am not an authority on social benefits, but my advice is that the work that was being done through the committee mentioned started in 2000. In 2023, a draft position paper was shared with the ministry. As far as we're aware, that was just a position paper. It has never been approved. It has never gone further than that. And we continue to engage with the PIOJ through the committee so named to give our feedback on any issues. And if there are any changes to the policy direction, we stand ready to so cooperate. And as I previously indicated, all our status reports are in up to May 2025, except for Hanover and St. Anne, which we expect by the end of today. I trust I have covered in summary, sir, all the issues that relate to the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, and perhaps suggest there might not be as many questions as you would have anticipated.
You hope there are no more questions.
Yes, sir.
Before I invite my colleague to Member Sibley's, I have a question, both for both ministries. If I gave you the name of an individual and their TRN, would you be able to pull up a summary of all the benefits that that individual has received, let's say in the last 5 years or so? I'll start with you, Mrs. Jennings. Within your ministry, I know you're working on integrating across ministries, but would you be able to do that within the ministry for the different programs?
Yes, Chair, we would be able to provide you with that information, even though it may take a while because, as we indicated, some of the programs are manual, but we have our files and should be able to do so.
I must tell you, as a member of Parliament, it would be useful information for certainly me, and I think other colleagues would want that, because you tend to have persons who have benefited, but you may not be always aware of the benefits that they have received, but they're still seeking help. Not that they don't need it, but it is always helpful to know what persons would have received over a period of time. Mrs. Henry Martin, within the Ministry of Local Government, would you be able to do the same?
Chairman, as you can well imagine, because we deal with the most indigent, some of these persons do not have TRNs, because we're dealing with homelessness as well. However, if there is a TRN, yes, we are able to do that. As similar to MLSS, it would take some time, however, because it's mainly paper-based now, which is one of the reasons why we're moving to a digital platform. And of course, we use the registered, the general registration number for the indigent, and that would be a more useful number for us with respect to pulling up the information on the benefits received.
Okay. Member Sibley's.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to put a spanner in the works. And my question is to both PS, because I never saw it in the Auditor General's report. And that is, have you done any research with regards to how many countries currently have a central database system?
Yes, sir. We have taken a look on it. If I sit here and say, yes, we have an idea of the number of countries, I would not be correct. But we have taken a look at some of the cases in Europe in particular, I believe, Chile, Peru.
Yes, right.
So we have looked on some international
I have
best
seen
practices.
only 6 in my search because I wanted a reference point. I wanted to understand the benefits from a centralized database system. One thing that I have noticed, Mr. Chairman, is that the developed countries don't have any. The United States of America, Canada, the United Kingdom, none of them have a centralized database system. And Chairman, I did even some further research as to those that the ministry pointed out as having a centralized system, if they were reaping good benefits and advantages of them? And the answer is yes, they are. But the issues they are having is far more. And Chair, I know you would understand the whole business of data protection. And we have a Data Protection Act. And I asked the question last week to the Permanent Secretary, but I never got an answer. But being that both Permanent Secretaries were going to come back today, I decided to wait until today to put forward the question. And really, how does the Data Protection Act fit in to having a centralized database system? Because one of the reasons, Chairman, that the developed countries don't do centralized database system for the social welfare network is the vast risk in access to individuals' information. And once you have different ministries and different persons being able to tap into a centralized database, then even where there might be some sort of protection built in the system, the fact that you have persons getting as far as in the system enlarge the risk of it being hacked. So I'm wondering if the permanent secretaries had looked at that. And if you have, can you just give us your view?
I would, before they answer, I would also ask the Parliament's Legislative Council if we could, for the same question, ask the Office of the Information Commissioner, who has jurisdiction of the Data Protection Act, how a matter as described by Member Sibley's would be treated with. I mean, my own thinking is that you would have to get the permission of the data subject prior to indicate that the information can be shared within some particular parameters. And it would have to be clear that it is only being shared within the confines of government and specific ministries for the purposes of coordination. But I think we should find out from the authority on that particular matter, which is the Office of the...
And
will be made.
Okay.
And Chair, just to add to what you have said, that is based on what you have said, Chair. In my research, it has proven that what happens in many of the countries that have a centralized database system is that it chokes the system, it creates bureaucracy and slow down benefits reaching the vulnerable. So that is why I asked the question of the both PSs, to talk to me with regards to have you looked at it and how you plan to go forward, knowing this.
Should I go ahead first,
Yeah,
Chairman?
sure.
Right. I think it's an excellent question, and it is something, yes, we have talked about, have mulled over, reviewed, brainstormed within the ministry itself. I don't know if you're aware, member, but already, if you are on poor leave, that information is somewhat protected, because even when the Auditor General's team at one point asked us for the list of the persons, we had to remind them that by law we are not permitted to release the information, the names of the persons who are on poor relief. And so by the Poor Relief Act, we are required to maintain that level of integrity. And so when we thought about the digital platform, we in fact also thought, how we should be protecting it. And as we speak, our IT, a lot has been placed on them because, as you're also aware, we are looking at other aspects of the IT infrastructure in local authorities to ensure these, the vulnerabilities that may exist are cauterized and placed at a minimum. We do have a, I don't recall the correct name of the document, but it is really intended to ensure the protection of the data that is in our electronic database anywhere it exists, to include our IT infrastructure. But most importantly is the fact that with the new Data Protection Act, the ministry sought to obtain on behalf of the Board of Supervision data protection officer to help us through this process. That process for recruiting has already commenced, and we expect to engage someone shortly to guide us even more on ensuring the data for our clients are protected. And of course, we have also engaged with the Information Office to ensure that we are following the guidelines so provided. And they have engaged with local governments, I believe at least about 3 times already, and we will do this as consistently as is necessary to ensure we meet the guidelines.
Mrs. Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. The Data Protection Act provides the legal basis for collecting, storing, processing, and sharing personal data. And any central system must align with the principles to ensure the individual's rights are protected. So I must say this is an area that we have looked at in the ministry, and we have to ensure that whatever we do in terms of our data processing is in compliance with the Act, and of course it is secure and it's transparent. We also note that, you know, having a data protection officer is critical to this process. I must say, as the ministry, we would have gone out twice to advertise for this post and haven't been successful. But we will be doing that again. But in the meanwhile, we have support from our legal officers. On the matter of data...
Sorry, before you continue, what would you regard as the reasons why you haven't been able to attract or been able to recruit a data protection? Is it salary levels or something else?
Well, we would have had the salary level given to us by the Ministry of Finance. The persons, my briefing and my review of the documentation would have indicated that persons who would have applied did not necessarily meet the requirement.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's something that we'll be going out to recruit another time. But of course, there needs to be some data sharing agreements to ensure that whatever we do, whether with ministry or any other entity, that we are in keeping with the Act. But I did invite my senior legal officer, just in case this matter came up. So I'm sure he would be able to assist us further.
Just introduce yourself again, and so just press your mic. Release yours, Mrs. Jennings.
Yes. Hi, morning chair, members of the committee, and colleagues. My name is John Paul Watson. I'm the acting senior assistant attorney general at the ministry. With regards to the question being asked, currently at the ministry, as P.S. Jennings would have advised, we don't necessarily have a data protection officer at the moment. However, the legal unit does provide assistance to the ministry. Most of this assistance so far would have been provided by ensuring there's a relevant data protection clause in our various contracts. Separate and apart from that, generally speaking, when we're providing social security benefits and we have requests to provide information to other stakeholders, we normally ensure that we have in providing this information, we would prepare a data sharing agreement. The data sharing agreement would, in essence or in summary, specify that the data should be shared in accordance with the relevant processing standards in the Data Protection Act. Separate and apart from that, as it regards the main question as to whether the Data Protection Act should be considered when or how it should affect the function of this main database, my view is that once the data is obtained from the relevant data subjects in a manner that complies with the Data Protection Act, then I don't see there being an issue. The difficulty may be how we go about obtaining the data. So for example, if it is that you need to obtain the consent of all the relevant data subjects, that may take some time. Notwithstanding that, we would also have to comply with the other various data protection standards. So for example, there would have to be perhaps a retention agreement or retention document to ensure that the relevant data is not held for longer than it should. We would also have to ensure that the data is only processed for the particular purpose for which it was obtained. So if the data is obtained, for example, to pay a particular social security benefit or to prevent the duplication of benefits, then the data should not be used for any other purpose than that.
You know, as I reflect on this discussion, I've been thinking about our role here as members of Parliament and what the implications are for us and our own offices, because we are generally the first points of contact for these people, and we have this information sometimes on paper, sometimes in a spreadsheet, sometimes all over the place. So there are also implications, I believe, for us in terms of how we manage and treat with that information. I don't think any of us want to take on any more responsibility than we have, but it is important. And I think, as you said, the issue of consent has to be obtained upfront. But it is something that we have to think about beyond just the ministries and the agencies, but certainly for us on the front line who would be interfacing with those individuals in need and have access to that information. But I don't want us to be caught up totally with the data protection side of it. While I acknowledge what Member Sibley says, there's clearly a cost-benefit analysis that has to be done in a small country like ours, of having multiple programs and looking at the cost of administering it, because that's really where the issue is. If you work out and you add up, both in terms of human resources, but financial resources to administer programs, and whether in centralizing those resources can be better directed to the beneficiaries. That's really at the heart of what I believe the Auditor General's report is getting at. But ensuring that the appropriate data protection laws are followed when we're doing so. Member who? Oh, sorry, Member Carencia, you'd like to intervene?
Yes, just out of curiosity, Chair, if duplication does not refer to a beneficiary being a recipient more than once, if that's not what duplication refers to, why do we need a centralized system? I'm just curious.
The Auditor General.
Right, so why then would we necessarily need to share the information across ministries? Because I am still ruminating on Member Sibley's contribution just now. If it is, and I'm just going to repeat, if it is that John received the benefit through one ministry, but it doesn't prevent him from receiving even 5 benefits, why do we need the centralized system then?
Madam Auditor General.
In that regard, yes.
I want to reinforce something that I said last week, and what I'm going to do is to read a recommendation here so that the context of what is being said by the Auditor General is not coming from the Auditor General, but based on research done by the PIOJ. And based on what I'm hearing here, it is my view that the PIOJ needs to be involved in this discussion because these recommendations are coming from the PIOJ. However, let me just state that the government has already developed the strategy for the centralized database of beneficiaries, and there's a $20 million project with the World Bank in pursuit of this. So if it is that we are considering the effectiveness of this strategy, whether this is what we need, I think all parties involved need to go back to the table. Because I just want to make it clear that the Auditor General's department is outside of this. This report just encapsulates the work done by various government bodies, the strategies developed, the targets aligned to those strategies. Thanks.
Member
Chair.
Terencio, yeah.
Yes, let me continue here. I do get the point, but as it pertains duplication, I want it to be very clear that if we are going to have a centralized system, and we know the benefits of having a centralized system, but as it pertains the person, the vulnerable person, if duplication does not mean that this person cannot be a recipient, a beneficiary more than once, as it pertains having this centralized system, right, and where we are concerned about data set, sharing, etc. I was wondering in that regard, what's the value of that as it pertains to the beneficiary receiving a benefit more than once? Why then would the Ministry of Labor necessarily need to share that information with the Ministry of Local Government if it doesn't matter at all? If that's not, if duplication is not about the recipient benefiting twice.
Okay, Chair, yes, right, and I just want to indicate as well that the PIOJ did identify duplication as a problem.
Speak closer to the microphone. Yeah.
Yes, I just want to indicate that the PIOJ did identify duplication as a problem. And what this report picked up in terms of duplication are the challenges outlined by PIOJ and actually the World Bank report, which is why I am suggesting, based on the discussion and the views shared, which I believe are all relevant, that the PIOJ needs to be invited to this conversation for that specific question, especially to be answered, and others.
Okay.
So I agree with you, Madam AG, because what it may be indicating here is that it also does indeed refer to duplication of resources. And I wouldn't have any difficulty with that.
No, and I think that's I think that's the central part of it. It's not so much that John Brown can get 2 or 3 benefits from different agencies. It's just that you have both human and financial resources at the Ministry of Labor administering a program which is similar to a program being administered at the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, also taking up human and financial resources. So I think what the PIOJ and the World Bank study would have identified is that we are not being as efficient and as effective in the use of those resources, not necessarily that the beneficiary himself or herself can't get multiple benefits, but that we could optimize by having that centralized database and having resources centralized, in a sense, to administer the program.
Chair, I want to put something into context. The Auditor General reports, this report to my mind, is what we call a compliance report per se. It's complying with what various agencies or institutions would have recommended and committees probably would have signed off on, right? So I want to put that on the table. And that's why I'm not so much asking the Auditor General about some of the issues that I am finding with the report, because I am looking at not only complying with the various institutions, whether they are external to government or they are within the government. I am just bringing some points that I think should be taken into consideration, right? And one of that is our own laws. And central to that is the Data Protection Act, that we have to bear this in mind, because we might develop something outside of looking at the implication of this law and create something that we never wanted. It was never the intention. We may even create a monster out of it, where persons, the beneficiaries who we wish to assist, they don't get what they ought to get. In fact, I don't know if you have it, Chairman, but rural members of Parliament surely have this issue, where the system of the part checks, where the system was looked at and reviewed, and the payment places, where the places are now, where the people have to go for their check, by the time they pay the taxi fare, it makes no sense, right? And sometimes the recipients of these part checks will be waiting a month, like 2 months come together, because they are saying to themselves, boy, better I take one fare. But by the time they go, those checks are returned to the ministry, and the ministry would have flagged it as these persons don't exist, and then they come to the Member of Parliament to assist them, because they are not getting their check as they used to, and so on. So I raise the issue so that we can bear these things in mind, notwithstanding that they are recommendations. In fact, Chair, I know you said it's not central, but I know it will be a big problem to political representatives when beneficiaries are coming at the end of the day. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation forbid it in Europe, and that's why it doesn't happen. It says several restrictions they have on how government can centralize and share personal data across agencies. So when you have a centralized database system, it can create bureaucracy for the beneficiaries. The other concern I have, Chair, with regards to this matter is the lack of redundancy and the risk when you have everything one place. And we hear it all the time. People hack into the system and hold the system at ransom, right? And those things are a real concern. So I asked the permanent secretaries, right? I'm not asking the Auditor General because they have looked at a setup. Their requirement is that they should review these things that were signed off and see where we are in implementing them. But I am cautioning the various ministries before you go ahead. We invite PIOJ and others to the table and let them give us a blueprint as to how to deal with some of these challenges that are real, some of these challenges that are put forward by developed countries, and some of these issues that countries would have implemented a centralized database system are having challenges. And that is what I am asking.
All right, before the PSs come in, let me just respond to two things you said. The first issue you raised about the path checks and not being collected really speaks to the issue of the lack of financial inclusion and the fact that there are so many Jamaicans who don't have bank accounts, because really where we need to move to for all beneficiaries is that whether they are pension checks, path checks, or that there are direct transfers directly to bank accounts. Now there are many issues there that have prevented that, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, we have to try and deal with those obstacles to treat with that. The second issue you raised about cybersecurity threats is real. I mean, there's no question about it. As you move to a digital type economy, you're going to expose yourself to risks from persons who are, you have two types of cyber criminals, those who just want to deface your thing to show that they can, and then those who steal data for economic reasons to sell it. And it's real, but I must tell you, member, I don't think we can turn back, because when you look at the benefits of ensuring that we are digital, the ability to deliver those benefits electronically, while the risks are there, I think we have to find ways to mitigate the risks. But, you know, the benefits are just far superior for everybody, for the government who has to administer, and for the individual who is the recipient. And, you know, I must tell you, even, you know, some of us are currently going through a process now with the ministry of providing names for assistance programs. It would be far easier for all of us if those payments could be made directly to their accounts versus you having to draw 100 checks, for example, and then those checks have to be to be delivered. So I'm just saying the risk is there, and it's real, but we have to find ways to mitigate that risk.
Chair, before the permanent secretary's answer, on a point of order, at no point I have said and discourage digitization. In fact, that is where we are going. What we are talking about, Chair, is the centralizing the database system. And if we are going there, if it is a policy direction to go there, I am just saying that there are some things that need to be looked at and to worked out before we implement fully. I just want to make that abundantly clear, that we do that and we do not go and then talk about is the policy makers or you did come at the PAC meeting and the PAC members of the PAC asking why you don't do this and so on. I have to think all the time outside of the box, look at implications, and ask if the technocrats if they have looked at the implications. And that is the question. Have you looked at the implications? And having looked at it, yes, if it's yes, having looked at the implication, how do you plan to go forward? Thank you.
Yes, Henry Martin, you want to go first?
Chairman, I believed I had explained extensively how the ministry had approached it. But for the record, I'll reiterate that yes, we had looked at it. There's no harm in continuing to examine it even in more details. But of course, as I said, there is a security for IT that the ministry itself had developed for itself, that it has also said to the local authorities, you may adopt in respect of the IT infrastructure. And I had said also that if you recall, we are looking at the IT infrastructure now in local authorities because of another reason that had us here some time ago. And so that is one aspect. The other aspect I mentioned was the fact that with respect to data protection, we would have been embarking on a process to recruit a data protection officer for the Board of Supervision, just to provide the support that is needed and to continue the engagement with the relevant bodies to ensure we observe and implement the guidelines that are required. Of course, I had prefaced the conversation to say, when it comes to poor relief, that by standard, by policy, by law, by regulation, we are required to protect these individuals' identity. So it is something that we take very, very seriously. We note the comments. We are not going to let them fall. We have been looking at it, and we will look at it even more, because at some stage, as I also indicated, when we are through with the digital platform on our side, we expect that it will be seamlessly integrated into whatever MLSS is doing.
Mrs. Jennings?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The matter of digitization is important, and that's where we're going in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and that would preempt our implementation of the social protection information system that we will be embarking on. And when we mention a central database in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, what we are looking at is to see how we can develop this comprehensive registry of the persons that we serve and ensure that we can target and monitor and coordinate the multiplicity of social programs that we have within the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And of course, we are seeing this as an opportunity to increase our own efficiency and of course to streamline our processes. So during COVID, we would have seen that we needed to be more agile in terms of our response. And so having this central database to provide support to persons would have been easier than having some of our beneficiaries in a manual system. So we see some benefits there, and this is why we are also moving towards not just check payments. So the program that you mentioned, Chair, we will not be paying by checks. We will be paying the persons through remittance agencies and through direct transfers to their bank accounts.
The current one?
Then, oh, you mean PATH?
No, not PATH. There is a current one that we've been asked to submit names, etc.
Yes, yes, Chair. And I'm saying that current program, we will be moving to make payments not by checks.
Okay, great.
But by direct transfers and through the remittance agencies. So
okay.
we are moving ahead in the
right,
right direction.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. Member Miller, you have anything you want to add? No, that's good. You have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to, there's finding, I think it's on page 10 of the Auditor General's report. Let me, page 10, page 9 rather. Finding 6. I want to make a comment because it touches on concerns a number of members of Parliament. And what I say is, as members of Parliament, we are the first responders a number of times, many times. It is us who Miss Nini, grandson, will come to and say, he got through to medical school. And we would in return say to him, try to see if you can get a school loan, right? Student loan. And then he would have gone there and come back to us. And in coming back to us, he would have informed us that the policy of the Student Loan Bureau is that they don't cover everything for medical students. But he has the audacity to do medicine. And so he comes to us. And Miss Nini is very proud of our grandson, first in the family, that is going to even University Muslims Medical School. And we are, as representatives, are bursting with pride because of the sharing of the joy that comes to us from time to time. And we would have made some commitment to assist. And part of that assistance is through the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, because this grandson can't afford it. They can't afford it. Ambitious, but they can't afford it. So we would have put that person to get the benefit every year. Every year. Because that person is not going to go law school or medical school or do a course and buck up into fortune. Sometimes they are able to apply for scholarship and receive it. So I want to put out there are some things that members of Parliament who have to deal with the social fibers of society. So seeing a person receiving a benefit year after year for 4 years, it is not, I just want to put it out there, it's not, right? The other thing is, I just want to put, because it has been said to me, and I look at the report, and I want to make sure the public understand, right? The other thing that we face from time to time, which the PS spoke to, is that many persons who are poor and need help don't have a TRN. They don't have a TRN. And one member in the community may choose to assist in order for the person to get benefit. It is real. It is very real. And when you ask Short Boss, or Tommy, or Jericho, why you don't have a TRN? Boss, me not have no birth certificate. And then you as a member of parliament now have to take on that responsibility because they are putting it at your feet, because they really need it. You can't help me. So until the process is completed for those persons to get the birth certificate, to subsequently get their TRN, you are going to find that there are some challenges in rural spaces. I know about rural spaces.
That's AI working without any input from me at all.
Chair, they have been
that's
said,
AI working.
We have,
that's AI
we have
working.
told that there are some AI speeches that come inside here, you know. So, there.
And I didn't program it to do anything at all.
Be careful what you accept now, we know. Right? But, colleagues, I would have, and other members of parliament would have inquired upon the permanent secretaries, how do you deal with this issue that is before us? They need benefits. We cannot close out the most vulnerable. We have to find an accountable way. And I want to emphasize, we have to find an accountable way, right, where we include them. And that is what I do for myself, right? So there is an accountable way to do it, right? You still get persons to make sure when it is given to them, they signed, and those persons who get from signed. And there are other means of bringing to the forefront accountability. So central to the Auditor General's report is the fact of accountability. And I see that, Chairman. I am not disputing accountability because it's taxpayers' money. It is taxpayers' money. And when you spend taxpayers' money, you ought to be held accountable. But I took the time, Chair, I took the time to bring to the space some of the issues that could have caused certain things. Thank you.
AG.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I don't think the member has said anything that I disagree with. I think it's important, however, that we understand, and we tend to use the term root cause to ensure that we are actually addressing the issue. Because to the heart of this particular comment here is actually what the member has said. It's accountability. And let me just read so that for the benefit of everyone. deficiencies in the design and management oversight of the short-term poverty alleviation project and the municipal social assistance program impeded the optimal delivery of the social benefits to those in need. The STPA project was established in 2013 by MLSS after receiving approval to operate the project for 4 months between December 2013 and March 2014 through a cabinet decision dated December 16, 2013. MLSS justified the project due to an increase in the poverty rate, which necessitated short-term intervention to provide immediate assistance in entrepreneurial and compassionate grants to vulnerable groups. However, MLSS continued the administration of the project for over 10 years. So it was meant as a short-term intervention for 4 months, without the necessary justification and cabinet approval. MLSS did not conduct a project review to determine the effectiveness of the project and to justify the continuation. And what concerned us most of all is that the ministry failed to establish benefit limits and eligibility criteria for the beneficiary selection as well as a standard operating procedure. And we indicated here that whereas some beneficiaries actually received one-off assistance, others received assistance multiple times. And let me reiterate, I don't have a problem with persons receiving more than one benefits, but if you're receiving more than one benefits, it must be done so in a context. And I would think that everybody should be eligible once they meet the criteria to obtain more than one benefit, but we're unable to know exactly the basis on which persons are even receiving the benefits because there is no standard operating procedure. There is nothing to guide the distribution. And in fact, I want to also say that in this instance, we actually reported that someone received, I think, $500,000 in one day, and it may have been distributed three different times. So in one day, they received $1.5 million. And others where we saw repeat over a period of time, it wasn't for education, it was for the purchase of goods. So we don't know the basis on which sums are being distributed in this manner. And there may be, as you say, a reason why, but nothing is documented. And as you say, it's public funds. There must be some accountability. So if funds are being distributed, there must be a basis by which you can say why A is getting it versus B. And basically to say who can get it. Because at this point in time, we don't really know who can get it.
All right. Member Morrison has up her hand. Norma, she was up
yes,
before.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And Madam AG, I agree with that 100%. But what I am finding to be so surprising is that the ministry has not submitted that or demonstrated that, because members of parliament will tell you, Madam AG, that the ministries are very aggressive with members of parliament as it comes to providing, or not even just providing, outlining the template of the different criteria, what we need to do, who qualifies, who don't qualify. And you have representatives of the ministry. I can call out the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. They actually send teams in the field. So even when the checks are to be disbursed, they are not giving those checks to members of parliament. You have to provide the facility for them to come out. It's actually a rigorous system, and one that I'm impressed with, frankly. So I'm finding it very strange that they would not have this information submitted right to the higher desk that requires it from them, because believe me when I tell you, Madam AG, we members of parliament, we are under the whip. Sometimes when we see what is being required, we say, no, man, this is too aggressive. This is, and we are in constant back and forth with them. So I find it very strange that you would not have this information, or that this justification that we have to provide for each beneficiary is not made clear.
Member Sibilis.
Chair, the Auditor General stated that the this particular program came into being for 4 months prior to me being here in the Parliament. But since I've been here in the Parliament, when these funds are being allocated, you usually have statement by ministers, the minister. So, whilst there you would not have obtained any documents, I know the minister usually comes to Parliament, and before, it is in this house, it is in this chamber that we would have gotten, after the minister would have made his probably sectoral debate, budget debate, or a statement, we would have gotten a letter. So sometimes it is not even the minister who would have made the statement. I remember during the COVID period, it was when we get stuff through the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the Prime Minister, the most honorable gentleman, would have made a statement in the House. In fact, before the statement is finished, I have persons calling my phone or WhatsApping me from the constituency and saying, "Me boss, remember me did ask you for that little favor, me hear the Prime Minister, what a good Prime Minister." So before I even come out of the chambers, persons are WhatsApping me. When Minister Samuda was the minister, it was the same thing. Before Minister Samuda finished, and I don't know if the Ministry of Labor and Social Security want to add to this, but I must be in a dream world, because I have been in this house and I would have been exposed to statement by ministers with regards to some of
I know the AG, but I don't think that's what she's necessarily referring to, the statement. You are correct in terms of ministers generally make statements for specific programs, but I think it's something different that the AG is referring to. AG, you want to?
To the House is not sufficient. The Constitution requires a process, and a cabinet approval is required before monies are expended. So that is what, and I hear what you're saying, but hearing a statement for us is not going to allow us to check the box. We're saying that the approval, initially, this program was established through a cabinet decision that had a 4-month timeline. So at the expiration of that timeline, what you're expecting, and what we're saying, we're not saying that the program should not exist, but we're saying it should be regularized, because the cabinet decision does not exist. A concept note needs to be developed, and the ministry in its response, it's local government. That's the other program that you have accepted, not Ministry of Labor and Social Security. So,
well, let me ask the PS with our mic on. You want to go ahead,
yeah.
PS?
Yes, Chair. Yes, we accept that this program emanated from a cabinet decision of December 2013. However, this program continued to be incorporated under the budget item 11127, rehabilitation support, which specifically states that the activity supports short-term poverty intervention programs, including the provision of compassionate grants and emergency relief assistance to persons who have met the misfortune that interrupts their income earning capacity or living conditions. I must note that at the time of the audit, the provision of the SOP was not available. But since then, that was put in place and provided to the Auditor General's departments, and it would have outlined some of the, well, outline what the program is about and the procedure for processing the grants and whatever special provisions there were. And also to note that there wasn't an enforcement of needs assessment. And I heard a member mentioning that the ministry has been whipping the members of parliament. Certainly, that has been in place in terms of ensuring that they submit their needs assessment forms and also to provide the justification for the support of the persons recommended by the members of parliament. So we have seen some improvements, and we hope that it will continue in that realm, as the program is still a necessary one.
So, P.S., you're saying post-audit, the documentation was provided to the Auditor General?
Yes.
Was that captured anywhere in your subsequent reports, Madam AG?
On page 43 of the report, Chair, the response from the ministry is stated: the Ministry of Labour and Social Security accepts that the mechanism for the administration of the STPA needs to be strengthened. Since the audit, we have implemented a procedural document which includes mandatory needs assessment form. As per analysis, the MLSS does not have has social worker capacity to verify an additional over 30,000 grants. As per the recently approved procedural document, the needs assessment is now mandatory. MLSS is currently reviewing the operational structure for public assistance with a view to consolidate grant programs. The target is for consolidation to become effective in 2025-2026 financial year. What the permanent secretary just said does not vary from this. She did indicate that since the audit, steps have been taken. This would have been a response to our final report.
Okay. So it is in fact captured in the document. Members, either online, I have a question which is not directly related to social assistance, but since I have the MLSS entire staff here, first I want to thank you and commend you for the detailed information that you provided this year on the applicants who went forward for the overseas program. You were able to give us a very detailed breakdown in terms of who didn't come to interviews, who were referred to other programs, and so let me commend you for that. That's very important. But one of the things that concerned me, I noticed I had a large number of persons, based on your report, who did not come to interviews. And that concerned me. And it concerned me given that if you ask me what is the number one request I get as a member of parliament, it is for these overseas programs. So when I saw that, I think in my case, out of 50, there may have been 10 or 11, which is 20%. I wondered two things. People, phone numbers may change. People may not answer the phone when you call them 1 or 2 times because they don't know who calling them and them don't answer. So what I would recommend is that in cases where you can't get the people, that you make contact with the office of the Member of Parliament and indicate to us that you've been trying to get John Brown or Mary Jane for the last 2 days and you can't find them, and can we assist in finding them? Because it just seems counterintuitive to me that the people who run us down for these opportunities would not show up for an interview if they were contacted. And as I said, in my case, I think it might represent 20% of my total application forms. And in my own estimation, those people I know want to go, for sure. So there must be a reason why you either couldn't get them or some other reason why they wouldn't have shown up for an interview.
Yes, Chairman, I think you have captured the essence of the key reasons why we would not have persons turning up when contact is made with them. Main one is the phone number has changed, or some persons would have relocated, as well as some persons don't answer the phone because they don't know who the person is. And so, yes, we are looking into that in terms of even utilizing emails, because some persons would have submitted emails, so we'll utilize that. So if they didn't hear by the phone, then they would see the email. And of course, we can take into consideration the other recommendation in terms of making contact with the MPs.
Thank you. Members, we didn't confirm. Are there any other questions, members? We didn't take the minutes, and I'd just like us, if we could just take the minutes up.
Chair.
Yes, Member Morrison.
Chair, just before, permit me, please, just before you go on, because again, I am going to go back to something Member Sibley's mentioned, and you seem to have been in agreement. I would also encourage the ministries to improve the systems to improve and increase the systems of accountability, especially as those systems impact the elderly and persons with disabilities. Because many times when these persons, they don't have the birth certificate, the NIS, or their TRN, or even a reliable telephone, you have family members who receive the benefits on their behalf, and the elderly and persons with disability, very often, they don't receive it, they don't hand it over. I believe that it is a wicked act, posing benefits, compassionate grant, and you know, Chair, sometimes it seems as if not even a cup of hot water they get out of it. The government plays its role by providing the facility, and it is family members or caregivers sometimes who take away the benefit, and so you end up being in the same situation. So that old man who you wanted to help, you know, to fix his roof, or you want to ensure that he has food or medication, when you go back and you visit, the condition is the same, yet a grant was issued. So I would like some, you know, maybe we take a more studied and focused approach on the kind of safety net that we will have to secure these persons and to increase accountability so that the benefit really goes to whom? To the persons for whom it was intended.
All right, thank you, Member Morrison. Member Sibley's.
Yes, Chair. To talk about the point of the farm work program and persons not showing up for interviews. I agree with the ministry with regards to persons changing their numbers and persons don't answer unknown calls. Because sometimes when the ministry call, it's from an unknown number. Fortunate for us in Clarendon Northern, we usually brief our applicants, those that we would have recommended, to let them know during the period of X, you are going to be receiving unknown calls. If you receive an unknown call and you don't want to talk to the person, you can hang it up. But please to answer. The other thing that we take on board in our system in Clarendon Northern is that we submit sometimes 3 numbers, and one of those numbers are usually somebody from my office. So when the ministry can't get the person or the family, they get somebody from my office, which is the 3rd number, and we would go around to Garden Hill to find that person, or we would go to Tweedside, or we would go to Kelly's Bottom, or Mawo Hill, because sometimes the network in certain spaces, like down in Arthur Seat, no matter what, you have to come up outside to get to the network. So we we are fortunate not to have the same numbers like you, but that is what the system we put in place, because seriously, sometimes the ministry are very frustrated by not being able to reach a person. And when they see their friends going, they are going to call me and say, how comes them don't get a call? But that is what I do. So I got less persons. But if there's a way that I can send those 7 that we couldn't find or so on, you let me know.
This is really not the opportunity for that.
I will even transport them to wherever you want them to come.
I would encourage you to from my narrow self-interest.
Madam PS, so you can let your people know that I am willing to transport those 7 persons that unfortunately we couldn't locate.
The chairman allowing member Sibley's to lobby here, and I am not getting that opportunity.
Thank you very much, PS.
Member Morrison, from a narrow partisan interest, I would happily encourage him to send his 7 people away. It might mean 7 less votes for him. So if he wants to, he can do that. You don't need to respond. You don't need to respond. Can we take the confirmation of the minutes, please?
So moved.
So moved by Member Morrison and Member Sibley's. You can second the minutes, please. Yes, thank you very much. Let me thank the entire team from the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Local Government, the municipal corporations. I think you should be happy. Nobody asked the municipal corporations any questions today, but I'm hoping that you're working on the backlog and clearing those accounts that we would have raised before, and the Auditor General's department. Can I have a motion for the adjournment? Member Miller, seconded by Member Sibley's. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
What aspect? You know which aspect? Sir, English check your email, sir. Ella, check it, man. We don't get nothing from you, man. Check it, man. All right. Yeah, man, I'm your down, man. Trust me. No, man, they delay them, man. Let's open it to the Thursday. We'll become a parliament. We have pressure on the council, sir. You don't know you're not going to until after election. Come on, man. Well, I have to give it a serious response. But I really checked it in. That's a good response. Yes, sir. I use that word there.
Chica, whose are these? Listen, we're talking on the phone and I don't... be talking in Parliament now? What election? Nobody will say so. I will say so. No, so.